Good afternoon. It's on. It's on. Can you all hear me? Okay. I'd like to open the board strategy session, and I think it's 4:05. And at this time, I'd like to have and our trustee Maricel lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And do we have any notes? Anybody who wishes for public comment? Okay. So we will go directly to our presentation. And I'm assuming, Madam Chancellor, it's your presentation?
I'm going to ask Executive Vice Chancellor Torres to lead the presentation on the budget.
All right.
Thank you.
Good afternoon still, I think, everyone. Good to see you all. Thank you for being here. We created this presentation which mirrors the material that you have, so there's nothing new that you're going to see on the screen that you already have in materials that you have in front of you. We created this presentation with one purpose, just to give you an update as to how we're doing with our finances for the unrestricted general fund only. That's the one that we get the state apportionment. That's the one that makes our district run more than anything. Just so you can see what we see when it comes to enrollment decline, when it comes to the revenue protections that the state is providing to us at the moment and that will provide to us in the future as well. So again, that is the sole purpose, just so you can see what we see, and so you can pretty much just to give an update on the finances and enrollment as well. Okay. And as you have done in the past, whenever you see anything on the screen or whenever you see in the paperwork, it just stop me, and then we can have a discussion. This is meant to be interactive more than just tell you what's going on. So whenever you have questions, just stop me and let us know, please. Okay. So at the moment, as you can see on the screen, in 2018, 2019, it was the implementation of the new funding formula, Student Center Funding Formula, SCFF, that's what we call it. At that time, all the districts jumped into the SCFF. If you recollect, at that time, there were gainers and losers at that time. We were a gainer, we were functioning really well in the Student Center Funding Formula, but then COVID hit. And because COVID hit, a lot of districts' enrollment declined. During the implementation of the SCFF, there was also the creation of the harmless clause, which was to protect those districts that fell below the revenue under the new funding formula. When COVID hit, and even the enrollment went significantly even lower, they created a third option for districts to opt in. It was the emergency conditions allowance. And that is the allowance that allows district to opt in as well. So every year we have the option, every district has the option to opt in any one of those three options of revenue, which you'll see on the screen. We have the option to be eligible for revenue under the SCFF. We have the option to be eligible under the emergency conditions allowance, or we have the options to be under the harmless clause, which is renewed every year. Harmless clause is supposed to take us until 24-25. There are talks at the state level that it will be the last year, and after that year will be rebench for all districts, and all districts will be rebench on whatever FTS districts have at that time. That's what they will get funded moving forward. So it's extremely important that we get to 24-25 with a high number of FTS. The emergency conditions allowance is renewed every year. We had it last year and this year as well. Next year, even though it's not in the trailer bill, it is expected that it will be implemented as well next year. The state chancellor's office has said that they're just waiting for the data from the districts to see what the enrollment looks like. Based on what we hear, and the enrollment is down across the state. Therefore, most likely, the emergency conditions allowance will get implemented next year as well. Okay.
Chancellor Torres?
Yes.
When this first came out, we joined the SCFF, right?
Correct.
And then last year, were we on emergency condition or hold harmless, or both?
Last year, we were under the hold harmless.
Okay,
And this year, we're under the emergency conditions.
okay.
We always try to opt in. We try to do, we do analysis. Every year, we do analysis of what we think we're going to be with enrollment. We do our own calculations and we determine which of the three is going to be the highest for us, and that's the one we pick. And every district does the same thing.
Thank you. Put your mic on.
Is what-
Thank you very much, Gloria. It is, excuse me for thinking about this as a past legislator, but the first thing I start thinking about as we're looking at this is we have, I believe with some success in the past, had an influence on how those categories worked and how we would be able to find in at least one of the categories that we did quite well.
Mhm.
And I presume that with the changes, that's made it more difficult to do that. And, but still, we would want to attempt to see if we can continue to do that. And I know it's complicated by the fact that we can't predict what's going to happen with great accuracy. You know, hopefully we're more accurate than most, but that's still not very good. So what, if anything, is there that we can try to influence in
Yeah.
the way this legislation is amended, as it frequently is?
Yeah, definitely. There are a couple of ways that we're actually participating at the moment as we speak. One of them, the chancellor shared with most of you, I think, last month, it seems like last month, that we were selected to participate with the state chancellor's office, one of 5 districts, to work with them on the student-centered funding formula. How can we maximize the SCFF? How can we maximize it? How can we work with it? And we're going to be one of the 5 districts that's going to work with them beginning next week. Yes, beginning next week.
We've been, I'll be meeting with the 4 other CEOs and the folks at the state chancellor's office to take a first look at what the issues are, and then each CEO will be bringing in a team to do further analysis on how it affects not only our campus, but
No, of course.
statewide.
I understand we
Yeah.
are going to be doing a service for our fellow board members across the
Right.
state, but it's usually the case that one of the slight compensations you receive for putting in that extra effort and time is that you usually end up doing reasonably well under
Sure.
the formula that results.
Sure.
So,
And also, Executive Vice Chancellor Torres is now sitting on the ACPO board for the state, which has considerable influence over funding issues. So I think hopefully, between the 2 of us on each of those committees, boards, we should have some positive influence on the budget.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and we also met with legislative office, analyst office last week, 2 weeks ago, 2 CBOs, myself and another CBO with our consultant, in which we are advocating to make sure that we have an aspirational goal for the next 3 years as to what kind of level of funding we need to be receiving from the student-centered funding formula. As the expiration of the hold harmless happens and the non-extension of the emergency allowance disappears, we need to make sure that we're positioned in a good place in the next 3 years, which will take two things. One is the funding level that they're going to give us for under the SCFF, and two, the number of FTS that we're going to have, which I think that we're going to work on in the next couple of years. Those are the two biggest components.
Yeah.
Thank you, through the chair. And I must say, I'm increasingly proud of this district, and not only but obviously the fact that we are the only district in the state that has two top-ranked colleges in the accreditation. But in addition to being proud of just kind of all these general things, I'm really am proud of the work that some of our staff people are doing. And I have to ask, Jose, when you were, making one of those trips across the fence at the border, did you have any thought in your mind that someday you would be establishing these kinds of policies for the state of California?
That was not even in my dreams, sir.
Yes. We are very fortunate that we have you. Thank you.
Yeah, we are the great district. I think you have always said that. Very proud of everyone that I work with. We all try to work together, very collaborative in accomplishing things for our district, for our students, because we're in it together. And I think that's the best way to accomplish things. We want to be proactive, not reactive, and we're planning for 2 years ahead now, which is a great thing.
Trustee Vericel.
Thank you. What are the other schools? What are the other ones? Do you know offhand?
The other school,
That are involved? You said there were 5.
yes, we haven't been aware of those other schools yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I know that the categoricals are not in here,
Correct.
but I'm assuming that the categoricals are in the discussion because the categoricals are really very important in retaining and the recruitment of students, whether it's EOPS or any of the other categoricals.
Student equity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
So I know they're not in the discussion today,
Correct.
but I'm assuming that as you're going to the statewide committees, that there will be discussion on the categoricals.
Yes, and usually the categoricals of discussion that takes place is to make sure the COLA gets applied to it.
Yes.
Because one of the things that sometimes the state forgets is to apply the COLA to the categoricals. So we want to make sure that COLA gets applied to the categoricals. That's usually the topic when it comes to categoricals. I don't want to say there's no harm or no risk, but usually there's no risk of them going away. There's some that come temporarily. We call them long-term categoricals because they're supposed to be year to year, but they're been in place for many years now.
Yeah.
But the talks is usually make sure that there's COLA attached to it, make sure that the revenue increases accordingly as well.
Okay, thank you.
So as you are aware, we always do multi-year forecast in our district. That's something that we have always done and will always continue to do to make sure that we know where we're going and how their finances are going to look like, how fiscally stable we're going to be in the next 5 years. We start forecasting, as Trustee Longville said, we try to forecast as the best accurate possible way. Their forecast, and the longer you go, the less accurate it gets, especially in a COVID environment, a pandemic environment. But we always try to do as much forecasting as possible as we can. And with that in mind, we kind of forecast the revenues based on the FTS. And based on what we see, this is where we think we're going to end up in the next 5 years. As I mentioned, this year we're in an emergency condition allowance, which is year to year. Next year, we're projecting that we're going to be an emergency condition allowance. That's assuming they're going to offer it again next year. In 23-24, we're going to be on harmless because we don't see that they're going to extend the emergency condition allowance. And then in 24-25, we're most likely we're going to be on harmless, and that's when it expires. And then the 5th year, that's when the rebenching will take place if the trailer bill happens to materialize as they're speaking. That's when it materializes, that's when everyone goes to the SCFF, the funding formula, student center funding formula. And as I mentioned before, there are two main ingredients in the SCFF. One of them is the rate that the state is going to fund us, and two, many other possible, but the biggest one is enrollment. So we want to make sure that we work on those two. One, try to influence the rate that is getting paid to us, and two, our role is to increase the enrollment in our district. Speaking of enrollment, this is a snapshot of where we are at the moment with enrollment. As you can see there, this is FTES, full-time equivalent students. In 2018-19, we have 15,372 FTEs district-wide. In 2019-2020, that's when we had the first year implementation of the promise. So our enrollment went up a little bit to 15,474. Then the first year of COVID, full year of COVID happened, and we went down to 13,569. Current year, a P1, we're about 11,682. Since the first year of promise 2 years ago, we're down 24.51% in enrollment, which is significant.
No.
Again, if it wasn't for those protections that the state has provided, the whole harmless and emergency allowance, a lot of districts, not just us, would be in big financial trouble.
Where do we stand in comparison to the other districts?
So it depends on where you are at the other districts. Statewide, we're about 15% statewide. There's some districts that are growing, but keep in mind, I met with some CBOs last week, and we had a quick survey as to who was growing, and there were a handful of districts that were growing, but they were growing in the non-credit, not the credit. In the non-credit, that's what they were growing, and that's what kind of triggers the enrollment, the 15% to be at 15%. But when it comes to the credit, they were significantly lower as well, same boat as us.
And non-credit, if I remember correctly, does not get funded in the same way.
It does not. It's at a lower rate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When it comes to the number of students, in 2018, 2019, we had 33,167 students. Again, on the first year of promise, that's where we saw significant growth in the number of students, 25,848. But then the first year of COVID, 22,000 went down to 22,036, and as of P1, we have 21,261, a decrease of 4,587 students, which is about 17.7%.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
The promise students, they're 2 years, right?
that is correct.
So do you happen to know, and this isn't part of, I just wondered, the percentage of promise students that we were able to retain into COVID, into
So-
the next year?
Oh, I don't have the number, but I can tell how many students we recruited. Will that? I know it
Well, I
doesn't
guess,
answer the question. I know,
but
sorry.
not really.
I know, sorry. I don't have many we retained.
I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
it was enough of a draw to keep them in the second year.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the second cohort, I owe you the second part of the question. Second cohort, which is the second year that's finishing this year, we recruited 1,470. I need to ask how many of those we still have here.
Yeah.
I'll get you that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Multi-year forecast. Keep in mind that one of the things that we're doing right now, because we're still working on the budget for next year, the current budget data that we have is current year. So this is based on current level expenditures, and it's adjusted in the future years by stepping column increases. It's adjusted by a percentage in employee benefits, and a small increase to other expenditures. So there are some small increases in there. And again, they're a current level of this current year, not next year. So the current year, this is what it's looking like. This year, when we've created the budget that you approve, we showed a loss of $3.3 million. We are hopeful, those are the process of COVID, right? We're hopeful that we're going to have some savings, and that $3.3 million is going to be a lot less, the loss. But we jumped into this year knowing that that was going to be the case. Next year, we're expecting a small surplus of $151,000. The following year, even a smaller surplus of $41,000. The following year, even a smaller surplus of $22,000. And then in year 5, which is when all the protections go away, we're expecting a significant loss of $8.7 million. That's how significant those protections are for us.
No. When will you know, I'm sorry, could we go back to that? On the 21-22, when will we get a better figure on what our loss will be?
In May, we have another strategy session where we present the tentative budget, thank you, tentative budget in May. At the end of May, that's when we'll show you a better picture of where we are.
Okay.
Instead of giving you the 8-font, 3 pages document that we usually give you, we thought, let's summarize it and make it a little bit bigger. And it's very summarized version here. But you can see here the 5 different years moving forward as well, and which matches. You see on the top, there's some that are a little lighter green. That's the option that I mentioned to you, and the protection. Those are the 3 options that we have in creating the revenue and generating the revenue from the state. We see that option 1 is the SCFF, option 2 is the emergency condition allowance, option 3 is the hold harmless. And you see there that in the first 2 years, this year, next year, we're opting for the emergency condition allowance. In 23, 24, 25, we're opting for the hold harmless, and then they go away, right?
Yeah.
In 23, 24, the emergency condition allowance goes away, as you can see on the screen. So there's nothing there. And then in 24, 25, 26, the hold harmless goes away. As you can see there, the revenue, state apportionment goes from $111 million to $105 million. Significant decrease in revenue for the year. Something important to note here is that the commercial building annual revenue that we're currently using for the promise, that we used for the promise before the previous year and we're using for the promise for this year, is to note that in fiscal year 23-24, we find it necessary to bring some of the revenue to the unrestricted general fund in order to balance the budget. And you see that it continues to be in 24-25 and then 25-26 as well. It's important for you to know that. We want to make sure that you are aware of that.
Will that require us board action?
Yes, when you vote on the multi-year forecast and when we bring the budget to you, that's when you'll see all this different information.
Yeah, because we hadn't allocated for the general budget.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, you'll see there that in 25-26, we'll have an $8.7 million, which includes the revenue of the commercial properties.
Yeah.
Without the revenue, will be about $10 million loss. That is the very short and sweet summary for you.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Put your mic on, please. Thank you.
There it is, good. Well, Jose, I just came back from Sacramento, so that's why I was late. And there's some exciting things that are happening, but there's some concerns. One of the things that I would like to tell our team is that I'm very proud of you in terms of the finance portion, Chancellor, the presidents. But there's going to be some hard times coming, and that's what they were talking about, preparing for that. I'm very encouraged that with your leadership, Jose, You're going to keep us honest, and you're going to be fair in telling us what we need to do. Some of the things that we're going to have to cut back or look at are going to be hard. But I think that with your leadership, I continue to say that we are going to, we're going to be successful. I know that other colleges are struggling quite a bit because of the lack of knowledge in regards to the reserve. We have a healthy reserve thanks to your leadership. So all I can say is that it was encouraging, but it was discouraging. So this is how we're going to be able to, your team is going to be able to maneuver what is best for us.
Definitely.
I could tell you, though, that, and the Chancellor, that it's encouraging that if there's certain issues, like right now, that's happening, we can't fly to Sacramento to take advantage of opportunities. And I want to thank the Chancellor and President Scott, specifically in regards to what happened yesterday. We're in a position to possibly put funding for a research office that is telling us, and it was specifically for Valley College, but we're going to include Crafton Hills, of course, but my wife is the one that is pushing for this. It's going to be $5 million to possibly do study as to why Latinos and African Americans are not doing as well at the community college. There's certain aspects that I think need to be studied. It's never been done before, and we're asking the governor and the legislature to put some money in there, and then it's going to be up to us, because I said, well, how they're going to determine who's going to get what. So again, I compliment and make sure that we have our enrollment figures, whatever they're going to need, so that we can submit, because it's going to be, $5 million is not a lot, but it's better than starting from scratch if you don't have anything. And this was encouraged by the Hispanic Latino Caucus at our conference when I went to the College League this past. Yes, it was suggested. So, but obviously it's going to benefit everybody. So I think that we need to make sure that we take advantage of that situation, and we're prepared to do what they want us to do. In the past, very, very, very beginning, we pushed for Title V before 1995, and we were the driving force, our college district, but we didn't do a good job in terms of writing that proposal, so we didn't get a grant. We never want to be in that situation. Gloria, remember when Judy Hurt was here? No. And we used her. She was an English instructor, but as a grant writer, sometimes.
That was a long time ago.
Oh, I've been here for a long time. But anyway,
time ago.
we don't want to put ourselves in. I want our college district to be respected, and they are.
So is this 5 million to the system, or 5 million to a particular district?
That's a very good question. Not a district, no. It's the system, and then the
To the system.
The system is going to possibly, that's why I said we need to
not
get
a lot of money.
everything well organized. It's not a lot of money, but there's nothing there right now, so.
Yeah,
it's
no,
just like-
I get it.
It's
a
like
small
in
step.
Title V, when we first started in Title V in 1995, we only got $12 million nationwide. Now it's $159 million. So it's
Yeah.
up to us. And we don't even know if we're going to get it.
Yeah.
It's
So
going
this
to be
is
recommended.
this is a proposal to the governor?
Yeah, it's going
Yeah,
to be,
okay.
it's put together by my wife. So I think I'm fresh from that, so that's why I said I wanted to talk to, Diana was there, and Scott, you handle it very well in regards to submitting the feedback as to why we're going to need that money.
Yeah.
So it's good. But yeah, this is a statewide, it's not a college district. We can possibly qualify for, what they
Sure.
want to do is to do more research in detail, because a lot of times they get the money, and then they'll say, oh, Cerritos College, you came up with a good idea, why don't you do the research and you hire the people, and you do, people are busy. I'm sure that even the Valley College and Crafton Hills College, you don't have a research person that can do those things on top of everything else that they're doing, right? So this will give us an opportunity to say, well, this is what's happening. So we're in a very good position to do some, take advantage of opportunities. It hasn't happened, it's going to be submitted. And so.
So
and
it's
there's
something to
other-
watch, it's something to watch
Something to
and see the
watch.
progress.
Right.
I have a question on the fund balance. You didn't give us a percentage because I think our policy was based on a percentage.
So, yes, so we are sending to the board, we approved already, my mind is failing me, that we're moving to a 2-month, as recommended by the GFOA. Did they approve that? They're approving it. Either you're approving it this month or you approve it the last month. That we're moving to a 2-month fund balance, which is recommended by the GFOA, and now it's being recommended also by the State Chancellor's Office. So that's the reason why you don't see the percentages. However, you see it at the bottom, the fund balance goal, which is 2 months of expenditures, way at the bottom of the spreadsheet. You'll see that. That's what the 19,571,000, that's what that is. And at the end of this year, we're expecting to have 21,600,000. So we have an excess of $2 million from the 2-month reserve.
Yeah, but it's really not an excess if we're going to be so far down.
That is correct. So you'll see.
I mean, it really isn't an excess.
No, it's not.
No.
So you'll see that in the last year, 25-26, we fall below the 2 month.
Yeah, we fall by 7 million.
That is correct. So 7.7 million. Yes.
Okay, so I don't remember if we passed it last at.
No.
No, I
Is it this
don't
month?
think so.
No, it was discussed, and then it was going to be brought to the next meeting.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
okay.
Yeah.
But,
So it'll come
uh,
to the 10th,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
But quick question. So the numbers for the 24-25 year are based on what enrollment? Is it current enrollment? Because my hope is by 24-25, we're back to where we were before, if not higher.
Yes.
We're done with COVID, pretty close.
Mhm.
Governor said.
Yes.
California Department of Public Health said.
Yeah.
So it won't be all that long. I'm certainly hoping that we see a big jump back in students before 24-25. So I'm just
Yes.
wondering what kind of FTES are we looking at to get to 24-25 numbers that we're currently looking at?
I think Chancellor wants to answer that.
I don't know that I can give you the exact numbers, Trustee Vericel. But historically, the community colleges haven't had this large of a dip in enrollment in its history, even coming out of the worst recessions, right? So, and even in those cases, enrollment did not bounce back at the percentage that we need in order to turn these numbers, to turn that $7 million deficit around. So I think we will still always be, at least in this time frame here, we will continue to play catch-up to our numbers pre-COVID, if history repeats itself. Now,
So,
one of the things that we are doing, and we've been talking about it in cabinet for some time, is a different way of recruiting. We know that within our high schools, they will not be producing the number of graduates that they have in the past, which is our top feeders, right? So we need to start looking at and thinking about enrollment in different ways, and which populations we are going to target, and how we are going to do that target. So we've been discussing very direct marketing approaches. More, if you think about it, just more of a direct, rifle approach versus a shotgun approach to it.
yeah.
So we hope to influence the numbers so that they're a little bit better than what they are here. But I think what Executive Vice Chancellor Torres was doing was basing the numbers on modest increases of FTEs.
How modest? Do you have a number in
Wait.
mind?
So what we don't have a lot of growth in here. So I don't want to get too technical, but you gotta, there are different options, right? The different options in there. The whole harmless, which we're gonna be in the fiscal year that you're asking, the 111 million,
Right.
right?
Right.
The whole harmless is based on the previous year's funding. So it has nothing to do with FTEs.
Just plain
Okay,
funding.
just play funding. So they're
Okay.
saying, we're going to keep the same amount of funding plus the COLA.
Right,
So it has nothing to do with FTS.
right.
However, in order for us to get out of this and to get out of the whole harmless in 25, 26, we need to be growing 4% every single year.
Every
At least
year
4%
from-
beginning next year.
From the, beginning
Begin
next
next
year,
year.
4% every year.
Every year, at least 4%. And then in
Okay.
25, 26, we will have at least $111 million.
Okay, so in 25, 26, the numbers are as you state them in the last column.
Correct.
So in order to get that bad, we have to grow 4% every
Each year.
year.
In order to get to
Okay.
111 million in 25, 26, we
Yeah.
have to grow 4% every year.
Okay, okay, thank you. I understand it now.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I really appreciate the fact that it's conservative, because a lot of times we have gone into projects with a pie-in-the-sky kind of attitude. And I would rather I'd rather take the worst-case scenario and prepare for that than to overestimate what our growth will be, or, you know, how much our enrollment will be. And then I'm sure that you are already discussing strategies on recruitment, on how to draw students to the campus and how to keep them, besides just drawing them to the campus. I would be interested, however, just for data as to, on our Promise program. The first year, I know we had a great number of people. The second batch, I'm going to call the second cohort, was not as strong, and we had changed the conditions a little bit.
Correct.
So somewhere along the line, we need to have an analysis of what happened there. I think we can learn something from that. Did we overpromise? What did we do? And we did not really have very much control over it, because we originally had approved as a board a smaller number, and then it kept increasing, and it got out of hand. And I know that we had a meeting in which the board members were surprised at the number of students involved in the Promise program, because that's not what we had originally authorized. So we don't want to do that again.
We do not.
So somewhere along the line, somebody should, when does the Promise program, the last cohort, finish?
This year.
This year. So we should have somebody in staff look at that, analyze it for us, and say, this was good, this was bad, this worked, this did not work. And it can be a lessons learned, right? Lessons learned. What did we learn from this? Because I love the idea of, and everybody is suffering, and I'm looking at not just the marketing, but the actual recruitment efforts that are being done, and
Right.
not just the public schools, but the private schools, all the other schools that are out there. What are they doing? How successful are they? What is it that they do that we don't do, or what is it that we do that they don't do?
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, just want to highlight one of the important items. I know I said this before, but I want to say it again. That because we're talking about the Promise, the revenue that is generated by the commercial properties, it's going to be used here with the Unrestricted General Fund
Yeah.
in fiscal year
And-
23, 24.
And I'm assuming
Yeah.
that means that we have to do a policy change on that, because we had restrictions on how we were going to use some of that money. So that'll have to come back to the board.
Yes.
So that we make a conscious effort and say, that's going to come into our general fund.
That is correct.
All right.
Yeah. It will go to the Finance Committee first
Okay.
and then to the full board.
Okay.
Is this for all the buildings that we own, or just the commercial buildings
Just-
here in this,
Just the
General
commercial
area.
buildings that we own here.
just those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. that's
Okay,
it,
so are we
yes.
thinking about doing anything with any of the other buildings that might help? I mean, I can think of $7 million of buildings we have lying around.
If we sell them, we can get a one-time money. So we are working on a needs assessment right now for the buildings that we have, the Rosa Highland, A Street, and also we're incorporating KVCR in there as well. And we're going to come back with a recommendation to you once that is complete. We're anticipating hopefully to be done within the next few months. But once we have that recommendation, we'll make sure that we bring it to the War Finance Committee and then the full board as well.
All right.
Yes.
We look forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
Look forward to that.
Me too.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I do. I know that we're looking at the future in regards to how we can recruit people, students, in a more effective way. I know that Diana does a very good job in having a very good relationship with the high school. I think that's going to be really important because it's like playing in the major leagues. You go to the farm team, and then from there you move up. We're hoping that by having that relationship and that counselors understanding how critical it is, community college is the best place to go. Not just because I work at a community college, but because, and I think that once it's emphasized that the instructors, the teachers, the counselors can say, yeah, you should go to a community college. Go there for 2 years and then transfer to a 4-year college. And we had a great example of the gentleman that his son was going to UCLA. And Diana was kind enough, and Kevin helped out in regards to the father says, no, you should go to a community college. No, Dad, well you're going to go to UCLA, and it's going to be online. Why don't you go there for 2 years? He's still here. He's going to transfer. Those are the type of relationships that I think at the high schools, the counselors beginning to say, you know what? I mean, people think Crafton Hills is a private little community university because it's so nice. See, so I think we need to capitalize on that relationship. I would recommend that the counselors take really advantage of that. Our counselors, having a good relationship, because that's what I did when I was in charge of the counseling. We had 2 high schools assigned to us. We will go and we will talk to them, and go out of our way. It goes back to what Gloria is saying. The private colleges, they do that. I understand that right now because of the COVID and all that, they don't allow people to go in there like they used to. But I think if we have that, that would be a good recruitment process for the high school, all high school feeders for us, then come here, and then we can take care of them. And I think that we're beginning to, this parent began to see, well, I'm saving whatever it is, whatever he was paying at UCLA. I'll throw a number, maybe $40,000 with everything, staying there, this and that.
Well, I'm sure that everybody's going to be working on strategies. But one of the things that I'm hoping that as you're working on strategies that you do is that you talk to our alumni, to the students who have gone through our camp, and talk to them. What made them decide? What is it that, not just money, it isn't always just money. And what is it that, by the way, my grandson is going to Crafton next year. And may go to Valley for some classes. I mean, he may be one of those students that goes here and there. But but I'm just saying that the reason he's doing that is not because of counselors. It's not because of counselors. It's because their peers.
Well,
It's the communication among peers. It's the communication about other students who have been successful at our colleges. So we have to, I mean, if you were to ask me why I attended Valley College, I'll tell you exactly why it was. We didn't have any money. We didn't have any money, so that was the only alternative we had, right? It's either that or go to work. So, but that's sort of old school right now. We need to talk to our current students. We need to talk to our alumni, within the last 5 or 10 years. Not somebody who went to school there 50 years ago, right? So, because the perspective is very different. And so we need to, when you're going through the strategies, because we're not going to be involved in that. You are, and your students are, those are the ones that can give you the best information as to what influences them. And so
I
I
think,
have all kinds of opinions, but I'm old school. I'm old school, and I understand that. So,
I think you're correct, but to some degree, counselors and professors play an important role.
professors do. Yeah.
The peers, sometimes they're misled. They want to go to the university because the beach is there. Because I've talked to them, being a counselor. So it's a combination of a lot of stuff. The peers, sure, but also the
We're
professors.
talking about those who went to a community college, and their perspective is going to be a little bit different. Yeah, they may have wanted to go to the beach, but didn't have the money for it.
Take advantage of everything, though. What I'm saying, if someone speaks to Kevin, my son's going there, Scott, no, you encourage people.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sure that you will have lots of discussions, and you're probably already having them, so, yeah.
I think we should ask every employee to take a class,
What?
and trustees.
I'll take a class.
I want a class on bookkeeping.
That's
They
no
offer it.
longer
They
in
have it.
existence. They don't call it bookkeeping anymore.
They call it
That's what they
accounting.
called it 200 years ago.
They call it accounting. They have accounting classes, bookkeeping.
Accounting classes,
Yeah.
yeah, accounting
Because I
classes.
remember I used to put people in bookkeeping, but that was Scadron was available. She knows what I'm talking about.
All right. Is that it?
That is it.
That is
Madam
it.
Chair.
Are there any
Yes.
other questions, any other observations? No? Okay. We look forward, when will we get another update?
May,
Right after the May revise?
that is correct.
Okay.
It is on May 26th.
May 26th?
May
yeah.
26th.
All right.
That is correct.
I have a question, just a comment and a question for Jose and the Chancellor. Do you see us, any benefit in knowing what you know, to go to Sacramento before anything is out, or wait and see? I ask for your opinions on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it always benefits us to go to Sacramento and be, in the spaces of the lawmakers and to hear our stories, and also to hear our student stories, which are incredibly powerful. But as far as for specific items, I'd like to see what develops out of the review of the SCIF formula, student service, the funding formula, to see what comes out of that, and to see if at that point we need the help of our electeds.
Well, we'll wait for your leadership. All I can tell you is that the chancellor for the UCR is always there, always asking. That's why he got $20 million for the medical school, and he continues to go. I don't want us to be behind that. I want us to go, okay, with the understanding that with your leadership, you will guide us to see how professional we can be in converting that. And John can tell you that when he was an assembly person, how how effective that is. We're losing 2 people.
Yes.
This is the last year. John continues to say, take advantage. And not that we haven't, but I'm saying Leyva is no longer, she's retiring. Medina is retiring. So let's do whatever we need to do to take advantage. Not that we're not going to have that opportunity again. You still have a strong person there. But, so.
Okay.
If I might.
Yes, John?
Frank, do you know, is Jose actually retiring? I know he's not running for reelection, but is he retiring?
He's retiring.
Okay, because Connie is running for soup,
Yes.
and I hope she
I hope you
wins it.
Oh, she understands. As a matter of fact, as I was flying down, there was 5 of us there.
Yeah.
Connie was there, and Bog was there, and
Thank
Alice
you.
was there. No, so yeah, no, they are.
Medina is retiring.
He's actually retiring.
He is retiring.
Gosh, he's-
Yeah.
And as you know, John, he can be a consultant for at least. I don't think he wants to do it. Jose is the easygoing.
Yeah.
I call him stress-free. He doesn't worry about anything.
Not too much.
Nice, must be nice.
Yeah, it is.
He's a great guy.
Any other comments? No?
Nope.
All right, then this meeting is adjourned, and we will reconvene for our regular business meeting on March 10th.